There's a direct pipeline from anti-SJW content to shit like Breitbart, InfoWars, hell, the Fandom Menace and Alex Jones have streamed together twice. It's not even in doubt that they play a role in funneling angry white dudes to the far right. And the anti-woke rhetoric is identical. And I can prove that. As someone who unfortunately hasn't done a deep dive into these group of commentators, I really like to understand what their end goal is. I understand disliking something and criticizing it, but there is more to it in this case. Will having shows and movies that they say they won't watch get canceled really make them happy? I didn't like Friends, but I didn't think it represented me as a person or what I wanted in entertainment, but I didn't feel threatened or angered by its existence or popularity. And then Fire and Blood, who I believe is in the chat right now. I can't wrap my head around it either. If I don't like something, I move on. I won't make 30 videos complaining about it and mocking people who do enjoy it. And yeah, you guys are spot on. Most people, the vast majority of people, aren't going to waste their time and energy on something that they don't like, even if they really don't like it, right? Like, you know, maybe if I was expecting a show or some movie to be really good and then it was really bad, and I was just passionate about why it disappointed me, I might make a video on that. But yeah, you look at these guys and they've made, like we looked at Ryan Kennel, he's made at least a dozen videos on She-Hulk.
Nobody really cares about She-Hulk.
Meanwhile, saying that nobody cares about She-Hulk. So why does that contradiction exist, right? Well, it's because it's literally a grift. And I know people use that word a lot, calling people a grifter. It's pretty common to hear that these days. And in some cases, it's not really accurate, or there's better terms that can be applied to somebody. But like, this is legitimately a grift. And yeah, I'm sure some of them do believe the stuff they're saying about, you know, they basically just don't want anything inclusive. That's part of the current crop of, you know, reactionary politics that's been building and led to Trump and so on, led to January 6th. It's all part of that same cultural push. So it's tied hand in hand, but you might get different degrees depending on which YouTuber we're talking about. One of them might be more into the, you know, anti-LGBTQ, anti-women, anti-person of color inclusion than they are in the grift. Maybe the grift just comes along with it, or it could be the other way around, where they're grifting and then using those talking points cynically but they really don't actually care. It doesn't matter which one it is, like what their intentions are, the effect is the same. And that's what I care about, is the effect.
Let me offer another theory.
Yeah.
Okay, so America in general, there's an argument that I've heard made that our greatest exports right now are actually our entertainment, our movies and TV shows. Is what's going around everywhere, all over the world, right? So they could see that as like, damn, I guess the left is what's representing America right now, because, you know, we have so many films and TV shows that are made by, you know, left-leaning people. And they want to hold of that. They want to hold of like, no, that's not what America is. What I think America is America, and the majority agree with me. So it could, like, they think of this as a culture war, and right now we're winning that culture war big time, and that just gets them angry. So they're going to use, and so a lot of bad faith. That's where a lot of bad faith comes from. All the garbage that they spew. It's like they literally want to have their ideology out there, and that's what they want spreading out there. Not what's going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And Pete, yeah, I get that you're it's kind of glib. I mean, you're right. You're 100% right. It's simple. You know, when you get down to it, it's simple that these are just snake oil salesmen / persons. But a lot of people still want to understand how somebody can put so much of their energy into this and what their, you know, actual motivations are. Why, if you know, there's ways to grift. There's ways to be a snake oil salesman that doesn't involve throwing marginalized people under the bus, right?
Yeah. And beyond that, even beyond the grifters themselves, the audience, why is it when Ewan McGregor says, hey, I don't like racists, does their audience think he's talking to me? Like, you know, like where do they get that? That's, you know,
it's a certain type of, you know, entitlement, which is, you know, something I really need to do a deep dive on at some point.
Isn't that funny that that's essentially what Kylo Ren was in The Force Awakens?
Oh, 100%.
he was the Star Wars fans like, no, it belongs to me. It's mine. And then you have Rey, the female character, like it's actually for her. And this guy's pissed off at that. Like, it's actually a very meta commentary of what's happening. Right now, the top thing we're exporting is like awesome Marvel movies. And so like they don't like the messaging in those movies, I guess. So they don't want, I guess, other people to see America that way, that this is what America is. And it goes against their point that they think they're the majority, which they're not.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, you can look at how they do things, how they operate, the things they say and believe, and then look at just the MAGA people in general, right? Like you got Ethan Van Sciver, who's been saying that, you know, Marvel and DC are going to go bankrupt for like 6-7 years now. You know, I've covered him a couple of times where he was pushing the notion that DC was literally going to stop printing comic books. You know, and this is like over 2 years ago, and he kept saying it despite any evidence. And it's very similar to the, you know, they stole the election, right? Despite having no evidence. In fact, you know, I think Giuliani took, 60 different claims to court prior to January 6th, and they were all like laughed out of court because there was just no substance to the claims, no evidence of anything. And there is like this common delusion, and it's hard to know how many of them actually believe it, or if they're just using this claim as a way to get power because they know it's the only way they can. Because like you said, Perp, they have lost, like the vast majority of people do not agree with what chuds say and do not agree with, like, you know, the MAGA movement and their whatever their fucking goals are. It's insane. It's hateful. It's harmful to people, but they make a lot of noise. And the way that the algorithm and pretty much any social media algorithm works is that it's based on reaction, in the sense that, okay, I'll go over it real quick. I did a whole video. It's on Westworld. If you want to watch a more deep dive on this topic, but like Facebook, for example, it doesn't care if you downvote or, you know, thumb down a post or whatever. People think that, like, a lot of people seem to think that if you thumb down a post on Facebook or my video or whatever, that's telling the platform that this thing is bad and somehow that's going to negatively affect me. If that was true, my channel wouldn't ever have gone anywhere, because when I first started out, I was downvoted more than I was upvoted. Anytime that I would talk about Comicsgate or something, they, you know, would do what they still do, and they flock to my video, they mass downvote it, you know, to the point where it gets a lot of downvotes, and you can tell it's them because it happens all at once. And then, you know, often it would be like some Comicsgater talking about my video on a stream, and the downvoting would begin while they were still talking about me on stream. And they think that they're like owning me or showing me that nobody likes this video. And it's like a dopamine hit to them. They're like, they feel powerful, right, when they can do that. But what it's actually telling the algorithm is that people will engage with my content, because it doesn't care if it's a downvote or an upvote. It doesn't care. It's not like Reddit, for example. I think Reddit does work that way, where it's like an upvote actually says this is more popular, right? No, it's not like that. It's just saying, because all YouTube, Facebook, and so on care about is that people interact with advertisements. And if you're downvoting or upvoting or reacting with an angry emoticon or whatever the hell it is, that's telling the algorithm that you're going to interact with this content. And that's all it cares about. But what is the thing that gets people to react and click the easiest? And there's been studies done on this. It's outrage. It's anger. You show somebody something outrageous, a post or a tweet or a video that makes, you know, or outrageous claim, something, you know, whether it's valid or not. You know, think about how YouTube videos, especially chuds, will use certain words in all caps, right? So like, you know, destroyed in debate or whatever will be in all caps. Destroyed. That's to trigger people's minds to go, oh shit, that causes people to engage with it. That gets, you know, and that's the easiest way to get engagement is, You know, if somebody's not excited by something, they're not going to engage with it. And the way that people get excited easiest is by triggering their outrage or anger response. And that's how this shit works. That's why chuds are so ubiquitous. That's why I'm sure all of you have had this experience where you go to search for something fandom related, and the vast majority of the search results are going to be some anti-SJW YouTuber. And so it's the fact that the algorithm works that way, and the fact that they crank out all these videos that are low effort, lazy, without substance, repeating the same shit over and over again. That's how they are everywhere on this platform, and that creates the illusion amongst their fan base that they are the majority of fandom. So that's why whenever Obi-Wan, or I keep doing that, calling him Obi-Wan, when Ewan McGregor and Star Wars come out and say, hey, don't be racist, they go, they're calling the fans racist, because they think they are the fans. They think that they're the majority, and that these, you know, that's why they think that if you get woke, you go broke, because they're not consuming this they're not paying for it in a lot of cases, but a lot of cases they actually are. That's how it works. That's why they're everywhere, especially on YouTube, and it creates this false idea in a lot of people's minds that is what a lot of the fandom is. So somebody in my Discord posted a Ryan Kennel video about Marvel casting a drag queen in Ironheart, which is great and harmless and cool. And he said, I really don't understand why he keeps repeating himself and why his fans can stand it. It feels like an endlessly roundabout of the same thing. And yeah, I responded, you have to understand, they think a woke SJW agenda war is being waged against them and quote unquote normal apolitical media. It's not repetitive to them because they see it as vital info in the ongoing war. So imagine an actual war, and your nation is being bombed and invaded like Ukraine now. You'd watch the news and follow reports on what's happening. So these guys' audiences have been indoctrinated to see things that way, but about movies, etc. They think it's a very serious ongoing problem they have to stay informed on. But on a chemical level, they get a dopamine reward every time they watch their favorite chud rant about how the woke are ruining everything. It's literally a drug to them. If I could drive home any point to you guys more than anything else, it would be that even if they do believe what they're saying and they do legit think that this is a thing that they have to be upset about, it's still borderline delusional. It's kind of a mass delusion brought on by how the algorithm works, and then the people, the content creators that are using that to their advantage to make easy money, right? And you know, that'd be one thing. Like, you know, a lot of people make money doing shady stuff, but it has a pretty large effect on real human beings. It has a real large effect on fandom.
Yeah, that's why I want to have a conversation with these guys, because I'm just dying to ask, like, what do you think is going on in the entertainment industry with the rest of the world? Or even better, if this was like mandated by some secret group, how come before these issues got into mainstream movies and TV were they being talked about within the indie circuit? Remember, there's that South Park joke of what an indie movie is. Oh, an indie movie is when a gay cowboy eats pudding, right? Like that was like the joke. It's like when these issues were being explored from clearly passionate filmmakers. They're doing this on their own, getting the money on their own and doing it, right? And it's eventually caught on to the point that it's now mainstream, and now it's hit the mainstream. So how do they, like, I that's why I want to talk to some of these people about like the history. I want to know the date. When did this start? What was like the watershed moment that all this woke politics went from like these indie movies to like Hollywood, and now the woke politics now is spreading all over the world. I want to see them like reconcile that.
And that's the rhetorical side of it, right? Like, yeah, they're hypocrites. They're clearly uninformed about the history of things, or they just have a very warped perspective on it. To where, like, you look at either of the debates that I've done so far, and those are the two that I've managed to get people on to do. We have tried many times We've made a couple of videos, Perp and I, just saying, hey, come talk to us, debate, chat, however you want to look at it. Let's talk about these ideas. And they refuse to. When challenged on their ideas, they can't back them up. They refuse to, debate them in the marketplace of ideas. From my Discord, somebody had asked me if I think that this stuff feeds into more radical political, not just beliefs, but actions. Basically, they asked, do you guys know what stochastic terrorism is? I'm sure a lot of you do, but if you don't, it's whenever like Ben Shapiro or whoever making videos all the time about how, trans women, actually, better example, Matt Walsh.
Today on the Matt Walsh Show, children's hospitals around the country are butchering, mutilating, and sterilizing their young patients. So according to Boston Children's Hospital, literally every toddler who has ever been born or will ever be born is trans. Now, if it seems like they're casting the widest imaginable net in order to catch the most children they can and put them all on a path to sterilization and butchery before they can even talk, well, that's because that's exactly what these monsters are doing. And they've done it up until this moment without much resistance from the public. But that has to end. We have to stop making it so easy on them. It's really just a matter of where do we begin. Maybe we begin at Boston Children's Hospital.
2 days later.
Boston Children's Hospital says its staff is being threatened and harassed now after far-right activists on social media posted misinformation claiming they performed gender-affirming hysterectomy procedures on young girls. The hospital says it's not true. They do not perform those procedures for anyone under the age of 18. Boston Children's Hospital says it is proud, though, to be home to the first pediatric and adolescent transgender health program in the United States. The hospital, though, now is working with law enforcement to try to better protect its staff in the face of these lies. And is like every day tweeting and talking about how, trans people being, essentially they're harming kids. It's just misinformation, right? And it's harmful to trans people. And it's created this whole recent wave of bigotry against trans people. Yeah, there's always been bigotry against trans people, but now it's becoming way more common to see it and to see people calling them groomers or anybody that supports even just gay people lately. Like if you're just like pro-gay or, they're like, oh, you're a groomer. And it's absurd and it's ridiculous and it's not based in reality at all. But then you have people that will act on this shit. And that's stochastic terrorism. Whenever you're a public figure with a platform who's constantly making these absurd claims, they'll say things like, words aren't violence or whatever, when technically on a certain timeline, they can be. When you get your audience riled up about this shit and dehumanizing trans people or gay people or whatever, that's how you get people to commit pretty atrocious acts, is to dehumanize an entire group of people. Here's the thing.
It's clobbering time.
There's a direct pipeline from anti-SJW content to shit like Breitbart, InfoWars, hell, the Fandom Menace and Alex Jones have streamed together twice. It's not even in doubt that they play a role in funneling angry white dudes to the far right. And the anti-woke rhetoric is identical. And I can prove that.
Anti-racist is a whole weird ideology that, quite frankly, tries to make white people second-class citizens.
White Americans are being treated as second-class citizens.
There are now two standards of justice.
It's a dual system of justice.
They care more about the illegal immigrants at the border than they do the American people. They're giving out handouts to them.
Our country just don't care about us Americans. It's all about a handout to all the illegal immigrants.
The foreign-born population is now growing by 132,000 people every month.
The non-whites are reproducing rapidly.
If we continue on this trajectory, eventually there will be no more native-born Americans.
Our people literally are an endangered species. Our people are having few children. We've got to start protecting our race.
If you're white, you have to go to the back of the line discriminating against white people.
There is racial discrimination going on right now in this country against massive numbers of white Americans.
How precisely is diversity our strength?
So how is diversity our strength?
I just want to know, there's so many institutions that these guys are up against, from education to entertainment. It's like everything. At what point do you stop and hey, maybe we're the assholes?
Hans, are we the baddies?
Right? If every single thing from academia to media entertainment is telling you you're an asshole, you're probably an asshole.
But they see that as it kind of goes hand in hand with the long running trope on the right that believes that liberals, people on the left, are just emotionally fragile. They're not strong people. They're weak, and you know, the whole bleeding heart liberal, this thing has been a trope for a long time. To them, it's weakness to care about other people. That has been nurtured and cultivated into what we're seeing now, where it's like not just a passive thing to not care about people. Now they're like actively defending not giving a fuck about people other than themselves, and they deny data, they deny reality. That's why the misinformation exists, because they need it. They need it in order to maintain this parallel false reality that they exist in, and that's why they push it to other people. You ever wonder, like, man, how did the Nazis in World War II get, you know, the citizens to go along with that shit? Well, fact is, a lot of them didn't understand what was really going on, but a lot of them did, right? And they had been nurtured this exact same way, to say that there was these groups of people, because it wasn't just Jews, it was gay people, it was Romanian people, it was all kinds of people that weren't quote unquote Aryan, superior Aryans, that had been scapegoated for all of the economic problems and everything that the nation itself had been responsible for. And that's where we find ourselves now, and it's a fucking scary precipice to be on.
They're only damaging themselves, like, even more so. Remember, I had that spiel last stream where it's like, well, what did you guys expect when you're telling all your conservative parents are telling you, hey, don't go to the liberal arts, go to trade school, do this and that. It's like, what did you expect to happen? Of course, the movie industry, creative artists everywhere are going to be more left-leaning if you're trying to discourage your kids from going into artistry, right? And now it's another degree where it's like so many of them now is like, yeah, school, don't go to school, you're getting indoctrinated there. They're painting themselves even more in their corner. I swear to God, these people are going to be living in a cave. Like it's really like a radical Islamist extremist, like the other side of it. They're going to have to dump everything and just live in a cave.
Do you think YouTube and other platforms are to blame for allowing this to get as bad as it is? Yeah, I do. There were studies that started coming out in like 2016, 2017 about Facebook and YouTube and the alt-right pipeline and so on, that like it just became clear. And that after that point that they didn't stop and go, oh, wait, we're playing a role in this. And they didn't change the way things operate. Yeah, they're complicit for sure. What do you think?
No, I haven't done research. I haven't read the article you did. Yeah, probably. I get flooded with these type of videos whenever I hit the homepage. But
I've got a couple of different accounts, Google accounts. Of course, I called it Forced Diversity. Of course, on this account, I'm constantly seeing anti-SJW content because I look it up on this account. But even on the other accounts where I actively avoid it, I'll still see them probably as often as other stuff. And that's with me having gone out of my way to avoid it, and then also to curate, I don't want to say positive content, because I'm not always looking for stuff to just be positive, but I'm looking for it to be fair and honest. But I'll still get that stuff a lot because it really has to do with how often they put out videos. Like, look, since I've started putting out more frequent videos, my shit's been growing. That really plays a huge role in it. That's why the Quartering puts out so many. That's why they all put out videos at least once a day. And it's at a rate that most people can't keep up with, like regular people, regular fans. You just can't keep up with, because we say what we have to say, and then what are we going to just start repeating it? No, because we've already said it. And our goal was to get our thoughts out there, and now they're out there. Their goal is not to get their thoughts out there. It's to continue to drive the algorithm.